Hey everybody, this is Pride School Atlanta coming to you live from Decatur, Georgia. I think we're recording. This is Christian Zelowitz, director, and
Dana Bevan, volunteer.
And Carrie Lund, volunteer.
And my pronouns are he, him, and his.
And mine are she and her.
And mine are she or he.
There we go. So, we're here today to tell you about a little bit about Pride School Atlanta. Pride School Atlanta has been open for about 6 weeks now. Today is the end of our 6th week, and today is September 16th, 2016. And I've invited two of our fabulous volunteers, Dana and Carrie, to tell you about what brought them to volunteer at Pride School Atlanta and what makes them keep volunteering at Pride School Atlanta, and what are some of the things they do at Pride School Atlanta that make it definitely a place where they love to volunteer.
Well, I guess the reason initially why I volunteered was I realized, having been transgender for all my life, that kids need a place where the learning environment is appropriate, where it's not too stressful and but a little bit stressed by the teachers, but not too stressful in terms of bullying and threat of physical violence and that sort of thing. So that was probably the reason that I volunteered. The reason I stayed is it's given me an opportunity to help fulfill some of the interests of the students, and they've had it is an extension. It allows me to extend my knowledge of things, both now doing things with anatomy and art and scoliosis and things that I would never have gotten into detail. But it's good to see kids want to learn and want to acquire knowledge about things that affect them personally and things they're just interested in. And that's the best way for them to learn and to retain the learning is really self-interest of what they're interested in.
And somebody just popped their head in a second ago. We're going to have her show her face. Come on around the side. You can look very short. And this is Reagan Stewart, and she is one of our fabulous volunteers. And what are you doing here at Pride School?
I am teaching art, inspiring our young lions.
And what are y'all doing in art today?
We are learning perspective.
Fabulous. Mm-hmm. As long as they see everything from your perspective, they'll do well.
Absolutely. Because I am the creative dictator.
Yeah.
But it has to be compatible with the anatomy. So right. So it has to have some basis. But yes.
And what made you choose to volunteer at Pride School?
I love the kids.
There you go. Sounds good to me. And why do you keep volunteering at Pride School?
Because the kids are wonderful.
There you go.
They're super bright and super talented.
And the director is amazing.
Well.
And modest.
Just kidding.
And modest. And balding.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Red. Mm-hmm. And Carrie is here as well. And so Carrie, both Carrie and Dana emailed me and said, I would love to volunteer at Pride School. And so I'll let Carrie tell you a little bit about what made her want to volunteer at Pride School and why she's here today.
Well, I found transgender can be a challenge, so I think it's nice for me to be able to share some of my opportunities and some of my experiences, both positive and challenged. So it's nice to be able to be with students that are not on a binary system, that are fluid and span all different combinations. So that's one of the reasons that I'm interested in doing it. And why I'm here is because I've loved teaching during my life. I've worked in the business world, and I've spent a lot of time training people on different processes that we've developed when I worked in the corporate world. I love students. I love working with them, and I think in Pride School we have an opportunity to not sit in some sort of structured environment like we would at a public school, and we have an opportunity to do different combinations of learning. So we're not limited to math or science where, Dana's doing neural networks and I could do a little finance And we even talked to a bread company today, and maybe Christian can have them come over and serve us some fresh bread and tell us how a factory, a pretty big factory actually, in Atlanta can make bread. So we have an opportunity to help others here by changing how we look at learning. Public schools are very, very structured, and we're very, very flexible. So we have the ability as a small school to move very quickly. So the education that the people will get here at Pride School will be much better than the public schools. And they'll have an environment where everybody's accepted. I mean, I'm accepted. So all the students, all combinations are accepted. And as they grow and mature, they'll be able to go out in the environment and help teach that diversity exists in our culture. And they'll be among the most talented students, so they'll be the most talented employees. And they'll be very valuable. That's very cool, very fun.
Excellent. And it just so happens that I believe all three of us are trans. In some way, shape, or form. We are not in the shape of our bodies that, you know, we were when we were 12 or 14 or 16 or 18.
I always look like this, actually.
Have you?
This is the way I was born.
Absolutely.
This came out really
Fabulous
big.
glasses. Came out really big.
Really big.
Really big.
A baby elephant.
And so, you know, for me as a trans man, I wanted a place where I would feel proud to work, where I knew that being authentically whoever I am, the fact that the pronouns have changed in my story over time, whether it's who I've dated, who I was married to, who I am today, that stuff doesn't matter, and it just connects me with other people. That's become really important to me, and to know that I don't have to go to work every day and be afraid of when the shoe was going to drop or who was going to say, I don't want my kid in your class anymore. And it was a place that I wanted to be proud to bring my family as well, where I knew my family was welcome. And regardless of how my kids identify, that I know that they're welcome here at Pride School if this model works for them. And I really appreciate talking about the educational perspective with people who have been in the educational aspect here and working with our students. And a lot of what our volunteers do is hold the space for students, and we're not always doing direct instruction, which can be discombobulating, and it's not always perfectly structured. And there are a lot of jobs that need to be done in this kind of school because A, it's a small school, but B, in a free school model, you've got some kids who require a lot of structure and need more one-on-one or small group instruction, and some who are just working independently. And I know that's been an uncomfortable place as the adults who are around going, well, what do I do, right? And help me know what jobs there are to do. And on any given day, there could be different jobs, and it may seem like we need more math on Fridays or on Thursdays, or we need more biology or something, but we're never quite sure exactly what every day will look like. And some days, it seems like we just sit back and make videos, right? Or we talk to the bread company. Or we Skype, we set up appointments for people to come in, and we just laugh. And I think a lot of what the difference between Pride School and a lot of other schools I've been to is there's so much room for laughter here. Like laughter through authenticity. And it's a place where I wanted to also work in a school where I knew that trans and queer volunteers and mentors and just people who are otherwise just gender fabulous, you know, people who are just a little bit different than who's out there, are welcome in our school, and they know from the get-go that if they offer their services to the school, they don't have to change who they are in order to volunteer here. They don't have to make up the pronouns. Like one of the librarians that came yesterday from DeKalb County, she's a lesbian, and she was able to say, my wife and I have a small child. And she didn't have to play the pronoun game. You know, and I think that's a lot of the added value, the unique value proposition of Pride School is you never have to play the pronoun game here. And it allows you it creates the space for a thriving education because you can't worry about anatomy if you're worried about what people are thinking of you and who's looking over your shoulder, when are they going to say the next rude comment. So we've created a space for education to happen, and regardless of whether students thrive on a full 6-period day and set up their own 6-period day. And then as we get bigger, we're going to develop more courses. And so, say when we have 15 students, we'll say, okay, anatomy class is happening these 2 times during the week, Mondays and Fridays, just like in a college setup. And so that's the cool part. Even Ben Franklin Academy does that. They have classes meet 2 or 3 times a week, and maybe some classes do meet 5 days a week. And regardless of what the requirements are in Georgia, we're trying to make sure that we start kids from where they are and look at where they want to go and then fill in the back of it. And as your goals change, what you're doing will change, as opposed to being locked into a schedule, right? Well, sorry, you don't want to take Spanish, you want to take American Sign Language, you can't fit that in your schedule because you're locked into Algebra 1 and you're locked into U.S. history, so you can't take ASL. Guess what? One of the kids said, I don't want to do Spanish, I want to take American Sign Language. Okay. Now we have 2 students studying American Sign Language, and we have a volunteer grandparent coming in and doing American Sign Language because she started a school for the deaf.
Yeah, I think it's particularly, if I can interrupt, particularly important for transgender people to get an education, and by which I mean not necessarily getting degrees and acquiring, but acquiring knowledge and having skills that help them with employment, and because there are so many transgender kids who can't make a living, who are resort to crime or are homeless. And so it's very important for transgender people to have something to fall back on, to give them a good living.
Mm-hmm. Have you, and what kind of employment have you done throughout your career?
I've had a pretty sheltered life, going to graduate school and then doing military and intelligence research, developing new technologies. And all that time I was trans in the closet. And all the time that I was scared to death that I would lose my security clearance or my job or both.
Did that ever happen?
No, I think I was pretty crafty at it, but no, it didn't. Partly because nobody would have suspected that I was trans.
Right.
I was a football player and a military person, and did a lot of things that were masculine.
Hyper-masculine, yeah.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot in the trans women Marines. Hyper-masculinize and hide out in there so that there's nobody's going to know. If I'm in a uniform all the time, whatever,
well, plus, plus there's that, I suspect. But there's also, if you're in the military, you don't have time to think about being trans. You've got duties to do. You're constantly concerned about welfare of people in your unit or national defense or whatever you're doing. You don't, I spent probably 10 or 15 years of my time worrying about fighting the whole war. And it wasn't a matter of whether...
How you identify.
No. But it just kind of put being transgender on the back burner, and something that I ultimately did face. So.
Right on. And Carrie, what's it been like for you being able to come down here and just be Carrie?
Well, I find that people are unaware that trans people exist. They have now about 1.5 million trans people in America that are identified. I personally believe that number is way too small. I believe there's more like probably 5-10 million trans and queer-related people. I don't fit the binary, so as weird as this sounds, I get called sir a lot during the day. I get called sir, and somebody will see me as ma'am. It doesn't matter what I do. Somebody in their mind, in their brain, they see me as this gender or that gender. I can't recall a time when someone asked which pronouns I prefer unless I'm with the LGBTQ. And they'll ask me, but society just picks one. So I think I'm getting an opportunity to cut some trees down on that highway so that younger people, which they totally accept me, they understand the difference between being a binary or being somebody that's fluid, and the terms are totally accepted to them. So for me, it means a time where I can relax. I don't have to be this or that. Example, if I want to be a female in this culture and I'd be a trans female, I'm expected to wear a dress. I'm supposed to have my wig on, I'm supposed to have makeup on, I'm supposed to have my dress on.
Because all women wear dresses.
All women wear dresses, all women have makeup, all have beautiful hair.
Boobs, right?
I have plenty of boobs. So, in fact, my breasts are probably bigger than most genetic females, so I got that department covered. But other areas, just because we're trans doesn't mean that we're totally feminine. If we're a trans woman, it doesn't mean that we're totally feminine. We can have masculine traits in there. And the kids understand this. I'm hoping that my being here allows me to expand the knowledge base in our universe so that it's a little easier for the young people coming up. But I feel totally loved here, totally loved. Nobody cares, and it's like, that's the way it should be in our culture. Our culture should be the same way. It shouldn't be that we have to come to an island and feel comfortable on the island with the natives on that island. The island should be our world, and our world should accept people of different combinations, different genders, different gender combinations, different sexual orientations. It doesn't matter what somebody is, as long as they're being nice and contributing to our culture. So,
and it's happening not just with the kids, with the students, but their parents, because their parents have had to come to understand that their children are trans or queer or whatever they are, and they understand about diversity, and they understand.
And we're here.
Yeah.
You know, and we're here, and the staff and volunteers that have come in have been a variety of straight, cisgender, bi, queer, lesbian, gay, transgender, you know, non-binary identified, however, right? And the great part is, I think I think a lot of what parents want to see is they want to know that our children will grow up and that they will have lives and that they'll live past 25. You know, and a lot of young, especially queer kids of color, queer and trans people of color, especially youth, they can't see past 24. They don't know yet that there are people. They need to see people. As one of the requests from kids when I went to this summit for excellence in education for African American LGBTQ youth, they said, you know, we want to see people who are older than 24 who look like us. And I mean, obviously, we're not people of color, but even for the, you know, white kids, you know, Caucasian kids, and their parents, they want to see that you have families, that you have a life, that you've got an education, that it's possible for you to be loved and find someone to love, that you have a house, you have a home, you've had a collection of life experiences, the majority of which have nothing to do with being trans. You know, that you have a life. And I'm living proof that you'll be okay, and I'm living proof that your child can grow up and have a life. And I mean, I've got a wife and 2 kids, I've got parents on both sides who love me, in-laws, you know, that cared for me. My parents came around, you know, from struggling with having a transgender child and, you know, young adults, or 36-year-old adults, not young. So I so appreciate your time in making Pride School launch, because being part of this history is amazing to me. And I know that we could not have launched without the 2 of you here. And the other 2 people, you know, without the support of the community, and I think especially for me as members of the trans community, the gender diverse community, that we were creating the space to change things no matter how these students identify. We could have had all straight, cisgender students, and us being here changes the world. Because I knew there's not a lot of room in education for trans and gender diverse people in public education, especially, somewhat in private, but for you to be able to say, these are my pronouns, this has been my life, I'm non-binary, you know, I'm gender fluid, gender queer, however you identify, it's okay. It doesn't take an act of Congress to put it on your ID card, to put your preferred name on your ID card. I don't have to put your government-issued ID name on your ID card. You know, we're not a big system that has to succumb to all that. And just, you've really created the space for these kids to be loved on, and for their families to be loved, for their families to know that there are people out here in this community who are really pulling for their kids. They're really pulling for their kids. And they don't just want them to be happy, they want them to be educated. It's so much more than just going to a pride parade, which is October 9th, by the way.
We'll be there.
And we'll be there, and we'll be marching, and we'll have a booth, and we'd love to have you volunteer. So I thank you both for that. And you know, 6 weeks in, you're still here. And we don't know exactly, like, 2 of our volunteer staff ended up stepping out back into the background now that we've launched. So, and people's roles will rotate. People will rotate in and out of the building as the needs of the students change, right? And our ability to volunteer or whatever changes. And that's okay. And so if you are interested in volunteering with us, we do background check and fingerprint everybody. And we require everybody to fill out an application if they're going to work with the students. And we do reference checks, and we'd love to have, if you'd like to join us, we're here Monday to Friday from basically about 7:30 to 3:30. We're 7:30 to 4 o'clock. And you can reach out to us, christian@prideschoolatlanta.org, or you can even send me a text message or give me a call, 206-261-1092. Or you can go right to our website, prideschoolatlanta.org, and contact us that way. And if you'd like to be in contact with Carrie or Dana about their experiences, you can email me, and I will get the message to them, and they will connect with you. And so we'll wave goodbye and say, thank you for helping us be big and small. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks.